If you can't find someone to share your secrets with, then finding freedom is going to be real difficult for you. Hey friends, this is Gabe Kolstad here with the Midweek Motivation episode of the Westside podcast, and I'm joined today by Julia Jordan, who is a part of our church family as well as is a mentor for our Celebrate Recovery program and has been involved for a long time. Glad to have you with us, Julia.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Really looking forward to digging into this. We're in a series in our church right now called Finding Freedom. And this podcast is really the follow-up of our weekend services and just kind of a deeper dive or a practical dive into it. So we're really following up from a message from last Sunday that we heard from Pastor Stephen Rady on getting rid of your guilt. And it was really powerful. I was moved by it. We want to kind of dig into the subject of relief today. And I want to talk to you about what's keeping you from getting relief. And I'm going to ask Julia to give us her insights along that line. But Thomas Huxley said this: a man's worst difficulties begin when he's able to do as he likes. And we've been wrestling through the kind of the implications of that statement. Like, yeah, when you have total freedom, it actually ends up being not real freedom. And it gets you stuck in many ways. So in our service this past weekend, we talked about this, that in order to find that freedom, to get rid of guilt, we have to really get to this choice where we say, I'm going to openly examine my life, and then I'm going to confess my faults. First to God, no problem. We know God is love, God is forgiveness, God is close. Those are things that the Bible teaches very clearly. But then secondly, confess those faults to another person that you trust. Ouch. That's really the hard part. Mm-hmm. And so I want to dig more into that in just a bit. But first, we're going to hear a little bit from Julia. And I'd love to hear kind of a little about your spiritual journey. So do you mind sharing with us?
Sure. Well, I grew up in a broken home.
Okay.
All kinds of chaos in my family life.
Yeah, where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up mainly here in the Portland area.
Okay.
We moved almost every year.
Okay.
So I was kind of like in different schools. We never seemed to move in the same school district. So about every year, maybe every 3 years, we'd move. And so, yeah. So pretty much been in the Portland area for about 50 years.
Okay.
And and kind of...
Now, so you're in a broken home. Mom and dad were divorced?
Mom and dad were divorced, had a stepdad, didn't know that he was my stepdad until I was probably about 7.
Okay.
And then found out that he wasn't. So my real dad came kind of back into my life and at that point, and so brought up all kinds of
kind of chaotic, I'm
feelings
sure.
and stuff, and so yeah, kind of a lot of secrets got revealed at that point in my life, and not only did it bring chaos, but it also brought hope.
Okay.
In my life, because there was a lot of, like I said, chaos and physical and mental and sexual abuse, not just in family, with family, but with, other people that I thought I could trust. So a lot of trust issues and stuff like that in my life. And so, it was really hard to go through that. So,
yeah. Now we know you're a follower of Jesus and been, seems walking with Jesus for a long time. How did you first meet God, or what was your introduction to Christianity or spirituality?
Well, with that being said, I don't know exactly when I accepted Christ. I know it was when I was younger.
Okay.
Because all through my life, I know he's been there.
Yeah.
And I always call them kind of like angels, but they were people, basically, that he brought into my life. One was a teacher that was my older brother's teacher, and she came into our lives and took us to church and stuff. And then I met a neighbor lady and her sister elderly lady, and they needed some help, so I helped them out at a young age. I was probably like 7 or 8, helping them carrying groceries and that kind of stuff. And
Nice.
so they took me to church.
Okay.
And I know at that point I accepted
Okay.
Christ, and, went to church with them, and then they ended up moving away. But that was kind of where I kind of got out of the church and learning about God. I had my Bible that was given to me by the teacher. And so I read that and knew God was still there, but kind of, became a teenager and did, some things that, weren't exactly good, started smoking cigarettes and marijuana and, doing some drugs that, just kind of experimenting with that, and, kind of went through that era in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I met my husband when I was like 8 years old.
That's a young wedding right there.
No, we just met and became friends, and then we didn't start dating until I was like 15.
Okay.
And yeah.
And when did you guys get married? How old were you?
I was 18, almost 19.
Okay.
So we're going to be celebrating our 40th wedding anniversary next month.
That's so cool.
So yeah, and that's about how long I've not used any type of drugs or smoked cigarettes.
Since you've gotten married?
Yeah, well, a little bit before that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's been 40 plus years.
Yeah. That's a pretty good track record.
Yeah, yeah. Not to say that, I haven't had other issues.
Well, sure, we all do, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, first of all, I got to say, and thank you for saying what you said. You said, I'm not really sure when I became a Christian. And I appreciate that, because I think there might be people listening, watching, who are going, look, I don't have this big story where, the light shone down from heaven and, the angels were singing and, my life was like completely transformed in a nanosecond. I don't have that story. And so is it real? And I think that, when you look at the New Testament, the teachings of Jesus, it's like, do you believe? And you could answer that question. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes you a believer, right? Is if you believe. And so don't worry so much about that glamorous story as where are you right now with God and with Jesus specifically. So thanks for sharing it. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah. So, when we, my husband and I came to church with my mother-in-law, his mom at that point. And yeah, so started going to church with her, and then that's basically when God delivered me from, marijuana. That was basically my God, because that was what helped me get through, all the trauma that I'd been through in my life. And so, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's dig in a little bit to like the topic at hand, in a sense, because you've been part of our Celebrate Recovery ministry for quite some time, and along with your husband Steve. And I think it'd be helpful for us to know, like, how did you get connected to CR, Celebrate Recovery?
So, like I said, we'd been going to church with Steve's mom, and then we continued on and went to youth group and kind of learned about God and what he was like, and that kind of stuff, and what we felt like he wanted us to do in our lives, and went through that journey for a while, had kids and everything, and then we ended up at a church and had some like some hurts that happened there. And so my husband kind of fell away from that, from church. And I kept going and taking my kids because I knew that was where that's how I wanted to raise my kids, is in with God's word and that kind of stuff. And anyway, my husband at that point was drinking a lot, became an alcoholic and started drinking every day a lot. So eventually I ended up not going to church anymore. My kids didn't really want to go much anymore. And so...
was it just because you were discouraged or...
Yeah, pretty much discouraged. Didn't feel like that I was being supported there. Not to say that there weren't people still reaching out to
I would
us.
imagine, yeah.
Yeah, because we developed quite a few friendships there and had lots of people I know praying for us and stuff. And just kind of, it was kind of a hard thing to, the trust there had been broken.
Yeah.
And, so we kind of started partying a little bit. And even at that point, my husband kind of stopped doing that even. He was at home a lot, didn't want to go anywhere, was basically a closet drinker. And, and so eventually we had a conversation about his drinking and some other things that was going on. And he's finally came to realize that he had a problem. And a friend of his at work invited him to come play guitar with him at a CR,
Is that
which
right?
he didn't know. It was a recovery place.
It was a trick.
Yeah. well, kind of. So anyway, he started going and, he's always loved playing guitar.
Yeah.
And so,
he's fun to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he...
so that was what got him involved.
Yeah.
It was an opportunity to connect and serve in some way.
Actually, he went just at the beginning to just play before the service, and then he decided to stay. He got involved with his friend. His friend kind of told him what CR was all about. And I really believe that, God was just leading him there because he had several encounters where CR kept coming up and
God, it's so good that way, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
When you need to be interrupted with grace, he is there to do it. If you're paying attention, and maybe you're watching right now and it feels like you're maybe been headed in a bad direction and you might see these signs. If you're looking, you're going to see these signs that, wow, God is really showing up. He's trying to move you back into a good place. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So you guys have been involved then in CR for how long, roughly?
Well, so that beginning was 13 years ago.
Okay. Amazing.
And then, yeah.
And then you've just, you were involved in kind of growing through it. But then, you started getting involved in leadership and Celebrate Recovery. And
yeah, probably about 11 years ago, I guess, that we, came here to this CR, started getting involved. And yeah, we needed it.
Yeah.
Because, eventually, you kind of find out, that I went to support my husband, but then eventually I found out that I needed help. I had gone through a growth group at our old church about the sexual abuse and all that. I had gone through a growth group with that with some ladies, and so found healing for that. But you
were ready to do more work. It
right.
Sounds like,
Well, and then that trust had been broken between me and my husband, and so had to kind of work through that process. Yeah, and
makes sense. Yeah. I know we see these amazing things happen in people's lives. What kind of miracles have you seen happen in people's lives as you've been involved now in this recovery ministry?
Oh, so many, so many. I see ladies that, I've kind of helped along the way that's, that are doing amazing things in CR. And, sometimes I think, oh, I'm not doing any good, you know?
Yeah.
And then, you know, years later, a few months later, somebody will come back and say, oh, you were, you know, such an inspiration. And, you know, thank you for being there, you
Yeah.
know, and that kind of stuff. And, yeah, so you just never know what, you know, your impact's going to be,
True.
you know, so.
That's exciting. That's
It
exciting.
is. And
Cool.
it's amazing because sometimes you see it and sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
You don't see, you know, what your example is doing.
Yeah,
So.
that's true. That's true. Well, let's get down real to the nitty gritty then, because the question that I really want to get into is, now that we all know kind of your journey a little bit, what this topic is about, we know it's easy to confess to God. I mean, at least if you're a person who's watching this, you're probably somebody who's like got some openness about what spirituality is all about. And hopefully you've got a sense that God loves you and that you're safe with God, that he wants you to approach him, right?
Yeah.
Confessing your faults to another human, oh my gosh, it's petrifying. It's terrifying. It almost feels like the world is going to end when you're in that position. And so what I really want to find out from you is if you're supposed to confess your faults to someone you trust, and if that is really, as they say, revealing your feeling is the beginning of healing. If that really is true, that's a path to freedom, and that's where you're going to find the relief that you can't seem to get, and you're going to, you know, get rid of that guilt. One, okay, how do you find a person like that you can trust?
Well, it is a hard thing, especially, you know, since I struggled with trust issues.
Yep.
So, you know, going to CR, you know, being in the groups, you know, praying, you know, and asking God, you know, who can I trust?
Yeah.
You know, in the beginning, with some of the things that I was going through, the only person I felt like I could trust was my husband. And so my first step study, and I know normally you don't do that. You usually have a female,
Okay.
but, you know, or a male, depending on. But he was the only one I felt like at that point, when I'd gone through the steps, that I could trust with some of the things, because he's known, you know, my life.
Yeah, because so it sounds like you're saying be thoughtful about this. Don't just randomly pick somebody and you know, dump your secret onto them and not knowing whether you can trust them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What makes up, you know, what makes somebody trustworthy as a confidant in this way? Like, does it need to be somebody that knows you kind of well?
I would say so.
Yeah.
So yeah, getting someone that you have known for a long time that you can trust.
Yeah.
So my second step study, I actually was in a different group, and there was one lady from my first step study that I had kind of grown close to, and she was a counselor, and so I was able to go to her, and she helped me through some stuff, and I felt like I could trust her. And so that it was a lot easier.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like maybe if you're in a position where you know you've got something weighing heavy on your heart, you need to get it off your chest. You want to do this step of like, yeah, I need to share this with another person. Maybe we ought to make like a short list of people that are possibilities and pray through that maybe, and then let God guide us to the right person.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So that's an important piece, is finding that person you can trust. Maybe, you know, one thing I would say that we could probably obviously look to is maybe they should be on the same page spiritually with you. That, you know, you're confiding in somebody that you can trust, not just because they know you, but also because you know their character a bit, and that, you know, it's somebody that you think is trustworthy, not only in their lifestyle, but also that they can keep a confidence.
Right.
Because that, that could really destroy this whole process. One of the things I appreciate so much about the whole process of Celebrate Recovery is just how much confidentiality is honored.
Yeah.
And, we're throwing out the words Celebrate Recovery a lot here, but it really is true about relationships in general, is that they're only good to the extent that you can trust the other person with your secrets.
Right.
And so finding those people, if you found them, it's a treasure.
Yes.
It is a treasure. Yeah. So, okay, the next one is, you find that person that you can trust. That's not even the hard part. The hard part is telling them. Mm-hmm. How do you do it?
Well, through Celebrate Recovery, they have books that you go through for your step study, and they ask you some pretty personal and questions, and so you kind of go through that. So it can be baked into that particular group, right?
But what if you're not in that group and you're never going to be able to be in it? What would you tell people that are like, okay, I think I found a person I trust. Now, what's the advice on going through with it?
I would just say, just do it. Just make the appointment with whoever it is that you feel like you can trust, and kind of give them a heads up on what you want to talk to them about, and I'm sure once you find that person, that you will be able to just open up to them and
I love that advice. Just do it, because it is easy to get stuck on. It's got to be the perfect time and the perfect place, the perfect words, perfect temperature. You can make all these reasons why it's not the right time, but you're just going like, just do it. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And it's hard. I mean, it's not going to be easy, and you're going to get nervous and that kind of stuff.
And so what about this? Because sometimes you're ready to share something, but you're not ready to share everything. What would you say to that?
Well, you can't do it all. I mean, we want to fix it all at once and that kind of stuff. But for me, that would be way too much.
Yeah.
Like in the beginning, God kind of helped me, go through the sexual abuse and that kind of stuff at the growth group that I was in. And then, another step study, and went through that with some other ladies about some other things. And then, so it's kind of like an onion, and you peel back the layers, and, so a little bit at a time. You don't tell an alcoholic if they're a smoker too, to quit both at the same time. That would be way too much,
That'd be a lot.
Yeah. So for me, I quit smoking cigarettes, but I didn't quit smoking pot.
Okay.
It was easy for me to give up the cigarettes, but not really easy, but it was easier to give up the cigarettes and still smoke pot. But
do you think that we'll ever get to the point where we're done sharing and that there's no more layers to the onion?
I don't think so, because, I think God kind of gives us a time of refreshing after we've kind of gone through that.
Okay.
And then he'll bring up new things for us to work on,
Oh boy, you mean there's more?
Yeah, but it's good.
Yeah.
Because it's healing, and God says he's not going to, be finished with us until the day Jesus comes.
That's true.
And that's where the hope is for me, is that someday I'm going to be with Christ. And, I'm going to have troubles here.
Yeah.
But he's what I look forward to.
Yeah.
And he's the one I can ultimately trust. And, even though there's times where there's people I can't trust here, I know I can trust him. And, helps me to remember that he's going to, no matter what I'm going through, he's going to provide a way out. And I just have to trust him, and knowing that he's going to bring healing in whatever area I'm struggling with.
That's so powerful. And I'm a crier, so it's a little tough for me to hold
too.
this back right now. But thank you so much, Julia, for sharing and just for being so vulnerable and open with us. And we respect and appreciate your journey. And though I wish there was a point where we could say oh yay, we made it. It's true. I mean, life is a big, long journey, and so the better we get at this, though, the easier it gets the next time, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I hope this has been helpful for you. And if it has, do us a favor. We would love for you to subscribe to this podcast. We'd love for you to share it with somebody else. And we'd also love for you to swing by a Westside service on a weekend. You could do that either online at westsidecommunitychurch.com, or you could do that right here in person at our campus in the Portland, Oregon area. But either way, we'd love to see you soon. Thanks so much for joining us for the Westside podcast, for the Midweek Motivation episode, and we will see you again soon.